Ahausan and dinawe magiduk. Ha kowena winita mo jibwe moyan. Ishkedash amigwech gabajaye gamioma gabe gikuno ma widi gamigong Algoma University Jawin jagadeg. Koedash ma animiki bene sheens nindago animiki bene indijina kanigu Gema Joel Surret Jaganash Jinakazoyan Ojibwe Anishinaabe Nini Endao Minawa Ongwe Owe Odinishone Nini Ngaye Ishkedash Mioma Bawatagonge Wayne Jabayan Abawatagonga Shkunaganing Obajwanang Wayin de Bindagwis Ejawin Jagadeg Ishkedash Indaji Dana Ki Mioma Gabi Gikanoma Widi Gamigong Algoma University Director Makwa Waakaa'igan Ejuin Jagadeg Koedash Ma Bangi Jagana Shimang. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone for being here. My given name is Joel Surret, so I am Ojibwe Anishinaabe from the Bawating area. Also have Haudenosaunee ancestry, as my father is from Six Nations of the Grand River, and wanted to take this time to say miigwech to all of you for being here at Algoma University, and also want to take this time to acknowledge our rich collective history as Bawating. And what is not widely known is that way back in 1981, to our knowledge, one of the very first survivor gatherings that happened anywhere across the country took place here on the front steps at Algoma University. And before we start, want to take this time to acknowledge the work, the vision, the resiliency, the perseverance, and the strength of the survivors. And this initiative is for, it's from, it's of, and it's about survivors. And just taking a moment to recognize those who are still with us. Shirley Horn, of course, Jackie Fletcher. We're very fortunate to have many members of the survivor community, such as George Diamond, Daisy Costas, and many, many more. And also want to remember the late Mike Kakajiabun, Shirley Roachabun, Susie Jones-Abun, and many, many others who came together back in 1981 and in that same spirit rolled up their sleeves, took the time to clean the cemetery, put funds forward to acknowledge all former students and staff, and have really provided a powerful example and a path forward of what this looks like. So wanted to start there. And in the spirit of all of the things that pertain to our collective history, also recognizing the beauty that is here in Bawating. You know, there are over 450 rivers that flow into Lake Superior, and there's really one that flows out. That's here in Bawating. So historically, this has been a place of great cultural significance. And of course, we call Bawating the heart of Turtle Island. So acknowledging place, want to say miigwech to all of you for your time. And it is my pleasure to introduce our member of provincial parliament, the respected Ross Romano, who will be speaking on behalf of the minister, the respected minister of Northern Development, Reconciliation, and of course, all of the things that pertain to all of our collective history. So in that, also want to take this time to acknowledge and say miigwech to the respected Minister Greg Rickford. If you will, please give me a hand in welcoming Ross.
Ani Bojo. Hello, everyone. Anishinaabe, good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you all here today again. And I always love being able to come back to Algoma. I always love good opportunities to be here at Algoma. And this is certainly one that is very, very special. Ross Romano, Indigenous Cause, Bawating, and Dojaba. My name is Ross Romano, and I'm here for, and I am from these very lands here in Bawating, the Sault Ste. Marie area. I want to start off with a land acknowledgement, and I want to make sure that we all really take the time to give some serious thought and consideration, and thanks for the privilege that we have to be able to enjoy these lands that we are on, the lands of the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, lands of the Garden River First Nation, the Batchewana First Nation, and as well, I want to recognize all of our urban Indigenous friends as well. And I think one of the most critical and important things that we need to recognize when we do a land acknowledgement is simply recognize that we were not here first, and that it is a privilege to be here. And we do have a lot of things that we get to enjoy because somebody has cared for and cherished these lands, and we now get to cherish that as well. And we should continue in those traditions. And so I think that's important for us to recognize. I want to provide some special thank yous as I start off here. I really want to thank Ozma and everyone from the board level at Algoma University for all the work that you've been doing, working so closely with the survivor community and working to really provide a lot back to our community, the greater community of Sault Ste. Marie, in terms of so many economic spinoffs that stem from having a thriving post-secondary institution like this in our community. And I think that's something that I hope we never take for granted. And I hope that we always recognize the importance of having that in a community and how much that adds to the community in so many different ways. Not just simply from training of people for jobs, but in terms of that overall economic impact that an institution like this has in the greater community. We have a number of people from the NOHFC board here today, and we have a lot of our members that are on the NOHFC fighting for our community to get more than our fair share, I will say, every chance we possibly can. So I really want to thank everybody from the NOHFC that is here today. I thank you very much for your presence and your continued work with our community to be able to have as many of these announcements as we possibly can and to have as much check and ribbon cutting ceremonies as we possibly can. Please keep them coming. They are much appreciated, much needed. And I think we have really seen how far a lot of these go and how much the benefits are. To our board members, Sam Biasucci, Don Mitchell, I really want to thank you for being here. And I think for everyone who may or may not know the work that happens behind the scenes, they put a lot of work. They go to meetings, they review the files, they review the applications along with staff at the NOHFC. And really that can't be understated how much work they put in to ensuring, exactly, very good point, my friend, the level of work that they put into making these applications from step one, phase one, all the way through to board approval, and then ultimately all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes to get them approved is significant. I'm giving you a lot of information today, and I'm going to give you a lot more. Forgive me in advance. I am going to ask for that forgiveness now. This is a special project. This is a special project for me on an individual level, but it's a special project, I think, for us all. Back in 2018, when I first got elected and we formed government, I remember chatting numerous times with Ozma and various people here at Algoma. I can remember speaking with Shirley Roach, quite a lot about, at the time, an OCIF, Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund application that Algoma University was putting in to create what would hopefully one day become Waakaa'igan. And the idea was to be able to honor and give a place for so many fabulous archives that we have here at Algoma University, from residential school survivors from across the country, a place for people to gather, a place for people to come and look at what had occurred to their ancestors, maybe find long lost family members, cousins, aunts, moms, dads, grandparents. And I learned that there were tens of thousands of people that would come to Algoma University without even any type of advertisement whatsoever from across this country and sometimes even beyond, just to see these archives. Oddly enough, when I came to the university to visit the archives, they were in the old EW21. Is it still EW21 or 22? Which was a classroom where I took poli-sci back in the mid-1990s here. I sat in that classroom, and that had become the place where all these archives were stored. And so we had this OCIF application, and the job of a provincial representative is to advance projects that will then be considered by the federal government for final approval, because there's different levels of funding. I won't bore you with all the details, but bottom line, I thought it was a really appropriate file to push. All at the same time, we were and remain and continue to deal with a serious mental health and addictions problem. That's not just germane to Sault Ste. Marie by any means. It's plaguing this entire country, continent. And it's one that we're still battling with, obviously. And there was a lot of asks for support in so many different areas, especially with respect to a mental health and addictions research, mental health a residential withdrawal management site, which we have now since opened. But I started thinking a lot when we were looking at how an OSIF application for a community infrastructure fund to build, in essence, a form of a museum, if you will, and a place for archives to be stored, a place for archives to be visited and seen, how that could translate to this bigger problem that we have that in so many respects is connected to our history and our history with Canadian Indigenous relations. And everything just seemed to naturally fit into place. And so this idea continued to take steam, and OSIFA was approved. We made our announcement for Waakaa'igan. As I always say, everything happens for a reason. And the fact that that project couldn't take off the way it was initially envisioned, I think was a blessing. Because here we are today with a much larger project that is now incorporating the Ontario Mental Health Research and Addictions Training Institute, which is now going to focus on research in the areas of mental health and addictions, especially as it relates to all of the background that we have between Canadian Indigenous relations. Really give a way to learn in a positive way, heal in a positive way from all the negative history that exists. So I, for one, have used a lot of words here today. I know I do that a lot of the time. Sometimes less is more, but today I felt it was necessary to show how these two projects, if you will, but I don't really want to call them projects. I don't think that does it justice. These two initiatives working together have a real potential, I think, to allow us to heal. I think to allow us to move forward in a positive way, in a way that was originally envisioned by Chief Shingwak. Working together. All our cultures working together for a common good, working to help one another and advance. And I think that was that original vision. And I think this is our opportunity in this very site where some of it all began. And I think that makes us a very unique opportunity that doesn't exist anywhere in this country. Anywhere. To have those archives, to have that history in the same place as a research facility, which we don't do much research, quite frankly, as much as we ought to, in this area of mental health and addictions. It is an ever-growing area, and I think it's an exceptional opportunity for our community to be able to be first in that area, but to heal first and foremost. So with that, I think I'm going to be turning it over to President Ozma, or am I supposed to go back to you, Joel? I'm not following great instructions, am I? So I will say, Chimigwach, thank you very much. And I should probably say before I continue and hold your applause, the NOHFC is advancing $2 million to this project. You know, a politician's lost his way when he forgets to talk about the money. But this is a special project, and I want to thank everybody again. And thank you very much, Joel. And I will take my seat now. Thanks.
I want to say heartfelt, sincere miigwech to Ross. And Ross touched on a very powerful point. Ross is Algoma U alumni. He's very proud to say he is Algoma U alumni. And through every step of the way, I go way back with Algoma. Like I was there the day on the front lawn when we got our independence from Laurentian and have been involved every step of the way. You know, since Ross's appointment and representing our community at, you know, the Ontario legislature, he has been a champion for Algoma every step of the way. So miigwech to you, Ross, and hit on some really key important points. And one of the things that I always say with pride is that Sault Ste. Marie is really good at not talking about or celebrating some of the awesome things in terms of our collective and community history. Not to put Ross on the spot, but Ross happens to be a student of Barb Nolan, who is the Commissioner of Indigenous Languages for Ontario. And what's not widely known is that the first Indigenous language program, again, in public school systems that took place anywhere across the country, happened right here in Bawating. Way back in the 70s, people like Barbara Nolan took existing French curriculum, and that's commonplace today. And that's yet another example of the wonderful things that happen here in our community. As well, Ross touched on a very important point, and he talked about Chief Jingwak. And I say this with humility. That happens to be my great-great-great-great-grandfather. I am one of many, so that's not any type of street cred or clout. There are many descendants, but to Ross's point, I happen to be the 6th generation from Jingwak, and I think to my Wa'ans, my namesakes, my nieces and nephews, they are 7 generations from Jingwak, and they are feeling the impacts of the decisions that he and the vision that he had way back in September 9th of 1850. So in Ojibwe Lifeways, there's this concept of 7 generational thinking. And the word is Andanaku Bijige, literally means my great-grandparents, also means my great-grandchildren. And if you place yourself in the center, that is 7 generations. And what Ojibwe elders tell us is that in our life, we are the conduit between that of our great-grandparents to that of our great-grandchildren. We are to make that idea of 7 generational thinking a reality for our future ancestors. And acknowledging the work of those that have come before us, they have given us a path forward. This is not just an initiative. This is not a project. This is a path forward. So miigwech to you, Ross. And it is my esteemed pleasure, privilege, and with humility, I want to introduce our President and Vice Chancellor. Please give me a hand in welcoming Dr. Asma Vesna.
Thank you very much, Joel. And it's wonderful to be here. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Bindigan, welcome. Osma Indigenous Cause, Bawaa'tigang Dunjaba. Sault Ste. Marie is my home. I've grown up here, lived here most of my life, a short stint in Timmins, where I taught in the JK to 12 system for many years. It is an honor to welcome everyone here today. And I do want to take a little bit of time to showcase some of the people that are in the room. I know I'm not going to hit everyone. But first and foremost, Shirley Horn, survivor and co-founder of the Children of Shingwak Alumni Association, a dear friend and former chancellor of the university. If we can just share our gratitude for Shirley being here today. Of course, our famous alumni who we've already introduced, MPP Ross Romano, a fierce champion of Algoma University and what it stands for, a huge champion in our community and in the provincial government, and I would say much more far-reaching than that. Thank you, Ross, for being with us today. We have a number of folks from the NOHFC, and I hope I have everybody here, but Kayla Downs, part of the NOHFC staff. Tony Avadi is the area team manager. Maybe we can just do a wave so people can see you. I want to spend a little bit of time on these two folks, but Sam Biasucci and Don Mitchell are both NOHFC board members. But more importantly, I have worked with these two men in this community, and they are such incredible examples of I'm not going to say elders, but I think I am going to say elders, and very wise community members who understand the importance of giving back. They don't need to be here. They are huge volunteers. They are advocates for this community's growth and development. And we're so fortunate to have you sitting on the NOHFC board. What you do for this community each and every day, whether it's in your jobs, whether it's in your volunteer roles, the companies that you've been supporting. Thank you so much for the work you do and for the support of Algoma. And maybe you can just both give a little wave so people know who you are. We also have Jocelyn Ufelt, financial manager at NOHFC. There she is, Jocelyn. Another fierce champion of Algoma University, and I would put this gentleman beside Don and Sam Biachucci, and that's Mario Turco, who is the chancellor of the university currently and about to extend his term. And I just want to say thank you for being with us again, Mario. Well, another very, very important leader in the university and a role model for women in this community. Kellyanne Lemieux is the Algoma University Board of Governors chair. She's an incredible leader in our community and in the healthcare system, and so fortunate to have her beside me leading the university at this time. So welcome, Kellyanne. Thank you for being here. An up and coming leader, and probably one of the most important people in the room, our student leader, and that's Minion Paul, who is the OSU president and who has been really championing cross-cultural education, cross-cultural understanding. She is working very hard to ensure that whatever we're doing, we're keeping students at the center of what we do. And really appreciate Minion being with us today. So if you can just give a little wave. I also want to acknowledge all the staff and the students and the faculty and administration that are here today and those that have helped to organize this event. It looks really easy when it's happening, but I know there's so much work that goes on in the background to get us here today. So thank you very much, and really want to, oh, and Melanie, I've got you right on my page. Melanie Muncaster, I forgot. So let me finish the staff first, and then I'm going to come back to Melanie because I have a special introduction for her as well. And I also just want to acknowledge the media that are here as well. This is a really important story for our community to be aware of because of the magnitude of the impact of this particular project. And I also just want to finish off with the administrators who actually have been putting proposals like the one that went to NOHFC. It's a lot of work to get those proposals done. And we really appreciate all of the work that you've put in and the success that you are experiencing for us. Melanie, another Algoma University alumni, if you can just give a wave so people see you. She actually graduated from the economics and business program here at Algoma University a number of years ago. Came back and served on the board for quite a number of years. I think it was 6. Hey, Melanie? Yeah, 6 years. And since she has been in her role, now she's actually moved up to Director of Regional Economic Development for the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines, but just an incredible advocate for this university. And it was through the pandemic that she and I had a number of conversations. We were really struggling. And I didn't know what we were going to do. In fact, Ross was right beside us, and we had no video technology in the university. We had no way of offering e-learning on any mass scale whatsoever. And I went to Melanie and I said, I need funds. I don't want to do this. Ross was getting me a partner, and it was NOHFC, and actually, Ross, you were quite involved in that as well. But that was one of the first times that we had to really approach NOHFC in a bind, and they came up with the couple $1 million to help us do what we needed to do at that time, and it really got us through a very challenging situation. We would not be in the financial shape we are today had it not been for that investment from NOHFC. We had to cancel so many projects when that hit with so much uncertainty in terms of where we were going, what we were going to do. Everybody remembers that, right? In 3 days, we actually had to convert from in-person classes to online. And we had never done that before in any magnitude. I think we had 2 classes online, right? You can imagine. So community matters, relationships matter. And today I want to speak a little, I'm not going to actually speak about Makwa, Waakaa'igan in the same way, because we have Mulaney Goodchild here today, who is now in a director's role, leading the way forward with Joel, another director that will have very important role in Makwa, Waakaa'igan. They're going to speak about Makwa, Waakaa'igan. I am going to talk a little bit about the journey in terms of how we got here, because I want you to leave here understanding just how important this project is, how special it is, how unique it is, and how spiritual it is. And I'm going to start with this poll. So when we were talking in the early days, and we're going back now 5 years, right? Before the pandemic. And we started talking, the children of Shingwak and a few of us, and we said, we're supposed to be national leaders. The children of Shingwak are a nationally recognized organization. They have caretaking responsibility for the archives of a critical moment in Canada's history. And it doesn't really look like we're a national center, right? Doesn't really look national. So we said, you know, we should think about building a national center so that they're not sitting just in this little wee classroom. Used to be a portable, right, Shirley? A long time ago. Before that, I don't even know that you had a space, right? I've heard stories of sleeping on floors and doing that work in hotels and different places. So we said, you know, let's just think about this for a minute. And of course, with the survivor community, everything started in ceremony. And it was beautiful to have Waakaa'igan, who's joined us today, start us in that ceremony, because he started us in the ceremony in 2018. And we started to talk about this concept of a national center. And so we were calling it, it's going to be the National Center of Reconciliation or something. And we kept going into ceremony, and the vision started to come, and we started to sort of map it out. It started with a 20-page document, and at that time it was Liz was there, and 3 or 4 members of the CSAA, and a few others that were, I can't even really remember who all was in the room there, but we put a 20-page document together following those ceremonies. And then we were walking, we were like, okay, well, how will we ever build this? Right? And at that time we thought, well, it'll probably be about $10 million, right? And so we started to look for funding, and we started to look at where could we get this money? And suddenly Colin, I'm not sure if Colin's in the room, but if he is, just a little wave, Colin said, listen, I've got this opportunity. There's this infrastructure funding opportunity. Is there anything you're doing that we might be able to fit this into? This is happening exactly at the same time. We're like, oh my gosh, yes, I think so, right? And so they started working with the children of Shingwak and the Indigenous faculty and staff that we had working with us at the time. And suddenly a proposal went in. And the proposal at that time was for about 12 million. And the board had to put a certain amount in. And at the same time, we still didn't have a name for this. And so we started asking Waakaa'igan, what might the name be of this national center? We need to put it on the proposal. And there was no name that was coming. And we kept kind of asking them, like, is there a name yet? And every ceremony we would have, and the name hasn't come. So we put the proposal in, and sure enough, don't we get the call? It was a very tough, we were competing against the arena in Sault Ste. Marie, if you can imagine, okay? And we were different funding pockets, but we knew only one was going to come out of Sault Ste. Marie, because this infrastructure fund was sort of massive, but they weren't going to, there were way more bids than they were going to accept, right? So we're like, oh my God, we're going against the arena, right? And there were some real friends of the university that were able to help us. And we kept doing ceremony, and we would bring people in to the ceremonies. You remember, Shirley? Ministers, and my goodness, Ross had everybody coming to listen and hear about this project. And anyway, we got out of Sault Ste. Marie, and then we got out of the province, and we couldn't believe it. And then the project actually, we realized we're going to need a lot more money because we were working with architects now, and we looked at the pricing and we're like, oh my gosh. And so I remember it was Waakaa'igan saying, how much do you actually need, Shane? I'm not sure if Shane is here right now. He's a director of the plant. And he said, well, we're probably going to need a little closer to 15, 16 million. And so it was Waakaa'igan who said, well, then ask for that. Anyways, don't we ask for that? We get out of the province, we get to the national level, don't we get the funding? And so here we are now in a place where we can actually build a $20 million building. And then the site search happened, right? We got Kamloops, the information from Kamloops. And we had to stall for some time, and we had to really have conversation about what does this mean for this building. And we decided it means we've got to delay for some time to allow the community and the children of Shingwauk to determine how we were going to move through this this new situation. And we've done that. And during that time, as you mentioned, as Ross mentioned, we started to talk about this mental health challenge in the community. And our board then made the decision that Waakaa'igan, which was the name that was given to us at that time, would be the place that they would invest an extra $20 million to put the third floor on. And that's where the request to NOHFC and a few others came to say, our community needs help. And we think we can contribute to this really major challenge of mental health in our community. Because if our practitioners and our hospitals and our agencies have access to evidence-based practice, if our graduates understand the impact of trauma on community and on the individual, then we think we can actually make a bigger difference, and we can contribute to helping our community once again become healthy. Makwa, and that's where I'll finish. Waakaa'igan came to us probably about 6 months to a year in. And when it was explained to us that this pole, this tamarack pole, holds the name. I won't get into it too much, but it, Makwa means bear in Ojibwe and in many other indigenous languages. And the bear brings healing to community. That's how it's been explained to me. It's much bigger teaching around the bear. Waakaa'igan is place or structure, feels like a home or house. And so this becomes a place of healing. So every part of this building relates to healing, and it relates to a new way forward. Today, we had 2 ceremonies going on at the same time, one in the arbor and one was happening here in the front step, right between where Waakaa'igan will be built. This is not about a building. It's not about a construction project, although the RFP, as many of you are probably wondering about, is actually going to be announced in September. We'll know the contractor who's building. But this is about a new way forward, and it's about helping our community. And I think Waakaa'igan is going to go across the world. I don't think it's going to be situated in a building. And so I look forward to Mulaney's talk with us today and sharing sort of the vision and what's coming to get you even more excited and a deeper understanding and appreciation. Thank you very much. Chimigwech. Merci.
Miigwech Asma. And it is my honor, my privilege to introduce our next speaker, somebody who is the other side of Makwa Waakaa'igan, Dr. Mulaney Goodchild. And there's many things that I can say. If you are not in the know, just do a quick Google search and the rest will speak for itself. But if you would please give me a hand in welcoming Dr. Mulaney Goodchild.
Bonjour and dino amagana duk, apachigo miigwech bizindawayag, wapshkeo gijidakwe zanang, indigenous cause, waba nang akwe indigo nishnabe among, moos indodem, bigtagong nishnabe, ishkanagay, ishkanagan wenji ayan, gaye kiragonzi bi, eralan kuchiching nindonchi, Mulaney indigenous cause jaganashi mung. So I say greetings to my relatives. I'm Dr. Mulaney Goodchild. I offered my two spirit names. I'm Moose Clan. I'm a band member of Bigtagong Nishnabeg. That's where my late father, Delaney Baugh, was from. My mom is Melinda Jones from Kitiganzibi, Garden River First Nation. And I also have family from Araland in Treaty 9 and Couchiching in Treaty 3. I moved home here to Bawating. So Bawating, Indeya, Noongam. This is where I live with my family 2 years ago. My mom wanted to come back to the Sioux. She was born and raised in Garden River. And in there, she went to Indian Day School, run by the Roman Catholic Church. My dad went to Spanish, but I didn't know that. He passed away. He had leukemia when I was 10, and he went to the spirit world. And before he went home, we didn't talk about that in our families. You know, our families came home from day school or Indian residential school, and we didn't know what was causing the pain and suffering. And so I want to acknowledge Shirley, beautiful Shirley, and all of the survivors, because Makwa Waakaa'igan, this university located in the former Shingwauk Indian Residential School, carries with it traumatic memories, and trauma corrodes the spirit. And we need to find a way to metabolize that and to turn that energy that comes with those memories, not to forget them, not to ignore those stories, but also not to sit in grief and shame only, right? So there was an artist that gave me a bracelet once, and she's Lakota. And the bracelet looked like it was kind of made out of brass. That's what it looked like to me. And I said, well, these are so beautiful. It's a very simple bracelet. I said, this is so beautiful, thank you. And she goes, yeah, well, those, we collected the casings from the bullets that were shot out of guns from the cavalry towards my people. You remember Wounded Knee. She was from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. And she says, and I turned them into jewelry. And I heard another elder describe that as turning poison into medicine. And I think, you know, this announcement today is so wonderful. I'm privileged to come in after a whole bunch of work's already been done and stand up before you and say, this is really wonderful. This is what's happening here. But it's not lost on me that that is turning poison into medicine, and not to be afraid of that process of you know, why we have some of these spaces protected as they are. If you do the truth walk with us and you see a cubbyhole that was once a place of terror, right, for children, and it's hard to imagine what that was like. But we want to bring that education, that dream of the teaching lodge, of Shingwauk's vision, Shingwauk Cones, and those prophecies. We're fulfilling prophecy in this work. And so for me, it's really deeply an honor. And I just wanted to share with you briefly today that as the academic director of Makwa Waakaa'igan, I get to work with Joel and an incredible team here at the university. We're going to center the pedagogy, the curriculum, the research in Anishinaabe ways of knowing. And that's emergent. That comes from thousands of generations of history, but it also is happening in a new time and place. And we collapse all of that together. We call it Wasa Nabada. We look in all directions, the 7 generations ahead, the 7 generations before, and our current generation, and we bring all that together. And together, we're going to co-design new undergraduate programming, potentially graduate programming, there's very robust systems within an institution. So I'm a systems and complexity scholar. So I study system dynamics and the way that these systems function. Sometimes they produce undesirable outcomes. And then we sit there frustrated and we say, well, the system did it, but we are part of the system. We're part of the system that we say breaks down. We're part of the system that works really well. And we're part of creating new systems together. And so that's the approach that we're going to take and continue the work that has been done by the survivors. And I'll wrap up saying that we are creating mechanisms and tools for spiritual integrity within this type of work. It's not easy to do because institutions function according to budgets, KPIs, policies, but simultaneously they function from a place of spirit. And so when I first arrived here, I went into the center that holds those materials, the archives. And I asked a staff member there, I said, do you have the records from other residential schools? And they said, yeah, we do. And I said, because in my family, they talk about my dad. He went to Spanish for 1 year, Spanish run by the Jesuits, just down the road here. I said, would you be able to look up his name? Because I don't know what year he went there. But I know that it was so awful that when he came back at that time, he was able to go home to Biktigong Nishnabeg, take my grandmother and all his siblings and move them to Thunder Bay, where the Indian agent couldn't send them. And my auntie, Denise Kopanes, who lives in Onigabing First Nation right now, she told me that, over cups of tea, and I was a grown up, and she said, your dad saved my life. Him and your Uncle Dobie used to bring us food to our little house in Thunder Bay. They'd hunt and fish and they'd bring us food. So we didn't have to go to that school he went to. So the staff here said, we'll take your dad's name and we'll look and we'll let you know. And the next day I got a photocopy of a ledger, and Delaney Goodchild and his number was there. And the year he went, he was 14 years old. And there's an anthropologist who interviewed my late grandfather, and he talks about my dad saying, I don't want to go back. I don't want to be here. I think he talked to him on the phone. And my grandpa said, well, there's another little boy from our community and he'll get lonely. So just stick out the year. And he did. He sticked out that 1 year. He stuck it out. And how many stayed and didn't get to go home, didn't have that opportunity. He was 14, so that was his story. But I never heard that story, and I probably wouldn't have heard that story if it wasn't for survivors and if it wasn't for, the Alumni Association here. So I think the medicine that's coming, Mushkiki 1, our medicines are all of the things that will happen in this building, but it's going to happen if we co-design things together and really acknowledge, that history and what's already been done and where we can go into the future. So as my Uncle Dan Longboat, who's Haudenosaunee, my spiritual uncle, says, and I will leave this with you, students that are here, particularly faculty, when I get down and frustrated and infuriated with systems that get in the way of what we're trying to do, he says, never forget, my niece, that you come from a people who can summon the very thunder beings from the sky with a pinch of tobacco. Never forget that. Thank you for listening.
Miigwech, Dr. Goodchild, and having the privilege, the honor to work alongside Dr. Goodchild. I always say, I'm so grateful because in any of our time together, I always come away with more knowledge, and very, very grateful in Miigwech for the beautiful teachings and everything that was shared here with us. We truly are gifted, folks. Those of you that are here, we are in the presence of some amazing leaders, and our next speaker is no exception to this. Somebody who has been involved in this larger landscape going back to the time of, the dawn of the 1980s. And this is pre-RCAP. This is pre, the National Inquiry or the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. All of this work actually led to the 94 calls to action. And to quote, one of my favorite scholars, Dr. Kevin Lamoureux, who comes to us from the great province of Manitoba, he says that if you have not read the 94 calls to action, actually take the time to read them. And you can ask yourself 3 questions. The first being, why was this call to action made? The second being, if this call was truly enacted, how would this make our community a better place? And the third question is, since these calls to action were made December 2015, 2016, what is the part that I have taken up to answer these calls to action? And I make mention of that because, the 94 calls to action come about from the work of incredible people. And going back to our collective history, 2008 was a monumental time because it marked the national apology. And again, you're talking about a group of people that at that point in time in our history, as Canadians, it was the largest class action settlement in Canadian history. And this is not a indigenous, crown practice in Canadian society. It is a Canadian practice. And in certain jurisdictions, if I am found criminally responsible, those who I've perpetuated crimes against, they are entitled to monetary compensation. Why I say that is because it's through the work of an incredible group of people who had every right to be angry, who had every right to be upset, and yet have given us a path forward and said, we want to take a portion of this and we want this to go towards healing. And that gave us the establishment of the National Aboriginal Healing Foundation. And that led to a lot of the things that are becoming commonplace in our collective history here as Algoma University. And this would not be possible without the work, the hopes, the aspirations of very strong individuals from an incredible group of people. And in Ojibwe culture, we have kind of a metaphor or philosophy, and it goes, "Gadami kwena mamanana gingyo gidinishinabe wa nigane ajig." We need to remember those who will be here in our future. And it's that forward thinking that Shirley Horn embodies in everything that she does. Our former chancellor, our first chancellor, when we got our independence from Laurentian, also proud to say she is Algoma University alumni, a founding member of the Children of Shingwauk Alumni Association, also a former Gima of her community, and played a pivotal role in negotiating something that was monumental at the time, where it was quite a substantial land claim that took place way back in the 90s. So there are so many things I can say, but it's my honor, it's my privilege to introduce our next speaker. Please give me a hand in welcoming Shirley Horn.
All those words. Miigwech Oshkipitab and the square and this the cause. New Dawn woman. Oh, yes, thank you. New Dawn woman of the Missinabie Cree First Nation. I'm very, very honored to be here today as we move forward again, taking another step in a direction that we had planned out many, many years ago. A group of us getting together and saying and knowing there's a mission here somewhere. We have to find it. What does it mean? Each of us were embraced by this spirit of not knowing what we were supposed to do, but knowing that we had to do something. And we didn't want to get overwhelmed. We wanted to take this in small steps. So what we did is we thought, well, we need to become friends. We need to learn who we are. We need to learn about the stories. What happened to you in school? How did you manage to get back to your community? How did you manage to live with your community again? And that was a very, very difficult step for many, many, many of the children that were here. Because we're not only talking about the physical being, we're talking about the spiritual being, the family being, the things of love, the things of caring, healing, all of those things that were torn away from us as people. How are we going to deal with that? I know for a little while there, we became very angry. But that was a good thing. Because when you're angry, you start to think of, what can I do to change this? What can I do to make changes? What can I do to make people aware of the life that we lived in the residential school? So that was our journey. That was the crux of who we wanted. So we said, okay, well, let's start telling our story. Let's bring the photographs. Let's bring our memories together so we can build and have information that we can work from. It's like any research program that anybody has. You have to gather your materials and you have to strengthen your base. So we did that. No money, just the hard will. But we walked with the spirit of Shingwak. I know we did. Because everything that we talked about came out in that vision, came out in the mission that we were going to develop to go forward and to move forward. It is my great honor and pleasure to have been a part of Algoma University and the very important things that it holds dear. And we formed that partnership. At first, when we started to try and become partners, we met with resistance. But we said, we're not going to let that dust stop us. We're going ahead. We're not going to be put aside, and we're not going to be angry and horrible to people. We're going to say, listen, sit down. We want to tell you our story and what that has and how that has affected us, specifically as children. We had to learn how to deal with us. And many, many times we did it without help, without direction, and without the capacity to be able to do those things for ourselves. But we learned. We were resilient. We did things together. We shared, as Ozma has spoken about, being on the floor and sleeping, taking turns sleeping on the bed, because we had to come together, because we had this work to do. And I am so proud to be able to have that partnership with Algoma University, and how the center of the school remains and has become a very important part in telling the story. The auditorium upstairs, the archives, these are all things that we did, bringing our stories together and offering it and trusting the vision that we would meet the people we needed to meet. And you know what? We did. We gathered so many partners along the way, people who believed in the dignity of the human being, to be able to live their lives and to be able to shape their future and the future of their children the way that they see fit. is important. It was very, very important to us to reach out to people who could help us do these things. I just want to mention right here at this time, at the September 30th, there's going to be an opening of the Wawanosh Memorial, which our partners, the Canadian Legion, have put together with us. And it's taken a couple of years to get that underway. But you were up there the other day when we were planting. But it's going to happen on the 30th of September. It's another project, another heartfelt mission that is to honor everyone who has been through this, going through it, and will be going through different things in the future, but they're all joined. And I like the way that Joel said the future, the past, and today, how important that was in the 7 generations. I'm part of that. I'm that middle part. I'm grateful to Creator for giving me this journey, for helping me to walk through it, for helping me to be where I am today, and for helping me to witness the work, the incredible work that is taking place and the miracle of all that. We say miigwech to Shingwak. I say miigwech to his family, to his nation, and for guiding us along the way as we move forward and bringing the people that we need together and to provide that strength that we need to make this grow into something that Canada and the Anishinaabe people can be proud of and to show to the rest of the world. Miigwech.
All right, now that the microphone has been adjusted, so going to be getting on to my speaking notes here. And of course, I never really use them, but miigwech to the team that put them together nonetheless. I want to take this opportunity to just again reiterate some heartfelt thank yous. So miigwech to Ross Romano, our member of provincial parliament here in Sault Ste. Marie, Bawating. Want to say miigwech to NOHFC, and of course, the respected members who are here with us. Want to acknowledge, of course, the work of Shirley and the Children of Shingwauk Alumni Association. Miigwech to senior leadership, and of course, the board, faculty, and staff, and of course, our students. Our students here at Algoma University. It's the only reason why we're here. And we either work directly with our students or we work with people who work with students. So we say miigwech to our students. We are going to get to the photo portion of our announcement here today. Once again, my name is Joel Surrett, so I say thank you all for listening. With that, I will say meego mamanik and wewe tuya na miigwechim bizendawiig. So that is all I have to say. Miigwech for listening, folks. And we will get to the photo portion. Also, we have sandwiches. We have lovely treats. There's some blueberry scones there, as well as cookies and some lovely refreshments. So stick around. We'll be having some awesome photo ops. And again, miigwech to all of you for taking the time to be here and for listening to me. Ahausa, meet you. Yes.
Thanks, Joel.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Joel. For those of you who have been identified for our invited guests, we invite you to please come out front for a group photo. And for the rest of our guests, we'll do a media scrum and Q&A in the hall, and our food is at the front. Thank you.